of the more unsettling takeaways from this week's or last week's CPAC conference was a video from a breakout session called Trump the Race Card. Are you sick and tired of being called a racist when you say, or actually when you know you're not one? Well, on Monday, we showed a short clip from that event where a participant suggested slaves should have been thankful for free food and lodging during those hundreds of years of slavery, in fact, 300 or 400 years. Turns out a documentary producer was in the room as well, and there's more video of the exchange. Let's watch.
It seems to me like you're reaching out to voters and that's the program that you're offering us at the expense of young white southern males like myself, my demographic. My problem is, why can't we be more like Booker T. Washington Republicans and just make a statement that let's be unified like a hand, but separate like a finger?
They call Booker T. Washington second to Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was the originator. Okay? So when you study Douglass, Douglass was not...
How about unity and diversity?
What about it? Douglass talked about that. Give me an example. Here's an example. When Douglass escaped from slavery, I think 10 years or 20 years after he escaped from slavery, he writes a letter to his former slave master and says, I forgive you for all the things you did to me.
Forgiving them shelter, food, all those things?
No.
Thank you. In a moment, we'll be joined by Kevin Dodson, who is producing that documentary for which that video was shot, called Black Tea, about black members, actual members of the Tea Party. With us now is Christopher Parker. He's professor of political science at the University of Washington and author of the upcoming book, Change They Can't Believe In, The Tea Party and Reactionary Politics in America. Thanks so much, Christopher, for joining us. It seems to me that what a lot of us who work on this show and have watched this program, we've been amazing. We've made a real effort to show the face of the Tea Party. All the placards up there, the sort of Hitler mustaches, the black face, if you will, superimposed on the face of Barack Obama. These obvious racial canards that keep popping up in the sort of the visuals. What does your study tell you about the nature of the racial peer of the Tea Party?
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. My study suggests that there is a strain of racism in the Tea Party, going all the way back to when the study began in 2010, that there's definitely a racist strain, but it goes beyond racism. It goes to homophobia and xenophobia as well, Chris.
Well, let's talk about how they all fit together. You know, is it sort of a resumption of the old South, of the way things were before the Civil War, for example? When you get, is it like that old dreamy nostalgia you get in the old movies, you know what I mean, Going with the Wind? Is it that kind of America they want to bring back, or what? When they don't, where there were no gays, where blacks were slaves, where the Mexicans were in Mexico. I mean, is this what they want?
That's precisely the case, Chris. What we found out, we've come up with something that we call reactionary conservatism. And what that means is, whereas a regular conservative, a more mainstream conservative, recognizes change is necessary to avoid revolutionary change, a reactionary conservative actually wants to go back in time. And in the book, we tie the Tea Party to the Know-Nothing Party of the 1850s, the Klan of the 1920s, the John Birch Society of the late 1950s and 1960s. It's the same belief system, Chris. This idea that they're scared of losing the America that they know and love to these other groups of people.
Yeah, they go back further to the Know-Nothings. You know, yes, that
sir. History.
That's before the Civil War. Let me go to the other voice here, Kevin Dodson. You're working on a film. What have you discovered so far in your filmmaking, your documentary, sir, about the attitude towards blacks within the Tea Party, the attitude of blacks towards the Tea Party, if you will?
Well, the attitude of blacks towards the Tea Party within the Tea Party obviously is very favorable. They're involved in the Tea Party for very interesting reasons that have to do with morality, that have to do with conservative values. A number of them, it has to do with fiscal conservatism.
Well, because the Tea Party seems to be, if anything, anti-federal government. Why would an African-American whose history comes from freedom, basically, the insistence by the federal government on civil rights against states' rights, why would on the issue just of basic ethnicity and history, why would a person want to identify with a group that's basically pro-states' rights?
That's a great question. That's actually one of the questions that compelled me to make this documentary. I think I first became interested in it because I saw Dr. R.V.D. King giving the keynote address at Glenn Beck's rally in 2010 at on the anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, and I became really fascinated. Like, why is she involved in it, and why are a number of other black people that I found? I found Herman Cain. I found a number of other black people who take a very different roles from everyday people. You know, the 2 or 3 that I found in the crowd at Tea Party rallies and conventions, to people that are on stage, people who are political pundits, people who are behind political candidates or now senators in Texas, for instance.
Okay.
It's a very fascinating question, and one that the documentary is still exploring.
Good luck with your documentary. Let me go back to Christopher. It seems to me, if you look at the issues about, not everybody in the Tea Party, I think, a lot of them are just made of government spending. I can completely understand that. It is out of hand. We always have deficits. We always have debt. It keeps growing. How can you not worry about that? But they do seem to be integrally involved in the cultural right and a lot of xenophobia, a lot of we don't want anybody else coming to this country.
Yeah, that's true, Chris. It's this idea that they're losing their country. They fear change. They're anxious about the change that we see. We see the browning of America. We see the gay rights movement is proceeding apace. We saw the first female Speaker of the House not too long ago. So it's this change that they have a problem dealing with, Chris. And let me get to the point about
why would somebody care?
Yes.
I've always wondered about this. Do a little psychobabble, if you will. Why would somebody who's white care about whether the country's white 100 years from now? They're going to be here. And the people who are here will be comfortable with it. It'll be their country. It'll be different than theirs. But your nature will change with the country's nature. I mean, why would you? It does sound like pure racism if you want the country to be tribally white 100 years from now. When I don't know why a black person would care 100 years from now. They're not going to be here either. I mean, why do people get into this speculative thinking about what the country's going to be like in 100 years or whatever? I don't get that exactly. What do you think?
Well, see, the country, okay, so when we think about what the phenotypical American is, this has been shown throughout the social science literature and historical literature, the typical American phenotype is a white, male, a Protestant, straight, married, right? Yeah. So when we think about any departure from this phenotype, it's considered the other or considered un-American, whereas that phenotype considers itself to be the real Americans. Yeah. And so they fear this change, this loss of their lifestyle is slipping away. Yeah. This sort of white, male, Protestant lifestyle, this cultural hegemony, if you will.
Yeah, well, Jackie Robinson was a real American, wasn't he? I think. Anyway, I'm just trying to go through the list. Just kidding. Willie Mays, I think he was an American, too. I think a lot of great Americans, not just sports figures, who are definitely really Americans. Anyway, thank you. In fact, I can't imagine the country without them. Anyway, thank you, Kevin Dotson.